Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. Two Jordanian planes and one Emirati plane dropped 25 tons of humanitarian aid over the Gaza Strip. The airdrops included food and essential supplies carried out by the Jordanian Armed Forces in partnership with the UAE. Israel will halt military operations for 10 hours each day in parts of Gaza to allow aid to reach the enclave. Over 100 food trucks are headed to southern Gaza as aid groups warn of mass hunger spreading across the region. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen will meet US President Donald Trump to finalise a trade deal aiming to end uncertainty for EU companies. Trump in Scotland for Gulf and bilateral talks praised von der Leyen as a highly respected leader. Islamic State-backed rebels killed 38 people in an attack on a church in eastern Congo, according to city officials. The assault in Komanda is believed to have been carried out by ADF rebels using guns and machetes. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with the foreign ministers of Cambodia and Thailand, urging immediate de-escalation of tensions. The US offered to facilitate future talks to ensure peace and stability between the two countries. The two Southeast Asian countries have agreed to allow Malaysia to act as a mediator in their border conflict. Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet and acting Thai Prime Minister Thumtam Wai Chai will arrive in Malaysia on Monday evening for talks, according to the Malaysian Foreign Minister. Russian air defense units downed 291 Ukrainian fixed-wing drones, along with 2 guided bombs and 3 projectiles, the Defense Ministry said. The strikes were reported on the ministry's Telegram channel. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has commended French President Emmanuel Macron's decision to recognise Palestine as a state, calling it a courageous step towards justice. This move has sparked controversy among Israeli and US leaders. Iran has executed 2 members of the banned Mujahideen-e-Khalq group for attacking civilian infrastructure. The death sentences were upheld by the Supreme Court despite criticism over a grossly unfair trial from Amnesty International. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un vowed that the country will achieve victory in anti-imperialist, anti-US battles. Marking the Korean War Armistice anniversary, Kim affirmed North Korea's commitment to building a strong country with a powerful military. Now we start this hour in Southeast Asia, where Thailand's acting Prime Minister Thumtam Wai Chai and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet are scheduled to meet in Malaysia on Monday for peace talks aimed at resolving their growing border conflict. According to Bangkok, the meeting will be hosted by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who also chairs ASEAN. Both leaders are expected to personally attend the talks amid rising casualties and regional alarm. In a parallel diplomatic push, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has reached out to both governments, urging immediate de-escalation and a formal ceasefire. Rubio spoke separately with Thailand's foreign minister and Cambodian leaders, stressing the US stands ready to facilitate future discussions, according to the State Department. The recent clashes, the most severe in over a decade, have killed dozens and displaced over 200,000 people. Monday's talks could lay the foundation for a broader ceasefire agreement and ASEAN-led mediation framework. Thailand's acting Prime Minister Phumtham Wechaya Chai and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet are scheduled to meet in Malaysia for peace talks aimed at resolving their growing border conflict. According to Bangkok, the meeting will be hosted by Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, who also chairs ASEAN. We're now joined by Martin Saar Arias to discuss. Oh, sorry, we're joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar to discuss this further. Dr. Sanjay, why has Malaysia been chosen as the country to mediate this escalating conflict?
Well, if it minimized through ceasefire, it is good news, which should help the global community peace loving. And one thing is that not only after Trump's
apologies, Dr. Kumar. We are facing some network issues there with the internet. However, we are currently looking at tensions between Cambodia and Thailand, which has led to dozens of people being killed and over 200,000 people who have been displaced by this crisis. It's entered its fourth day now, and there is already talks of de-escalation, mediation now between the two countries and being done by Malaysia, with talks set for Monday. There's also an offer there from US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who had a call with the foreign ministers of Cambodia and Thailand today. He urged them immediately to de-escalate tensions and told them that the United States was ready to help with the talks. The United States was prepared, says the United States is prepared to facilitate future discussions in order to ensure peace and stability between Thailand and Cambodia. That comes from the US State Department. As we've said, hopefully we have Dr. Kumar join us in just a second. But this conflict has been raging on now for 4 days. They've agreed to hold talks in Malaysia on Monday in an attempt to negotiate an end to this conflict. Thailand has said on Sunday that a delegation led by the acting Prime Minister Phum Tham, he would attend after President Trump called the leaders of both countries and urged an immediate ceasefire. At least 33 soldiers and civilians have been killed in this conflict, while thousands of Thai and Cambodian nationals have been displaced among that border region in contention since the fighting broke out on the 24th of July. Donald Trump, of course, currently in Scotland, but still continuing diplomatic efforts over in Southeast Asia as he continues his tour and visit to the north of the UK. I do believe we are now joined by Raymond Vickery to discuss this story. He is a former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce. He joins us live from Washington, D.C. Raymond, thank you so much for joining us on the program. What are your thoughts on this conflict? Both the fact that it's lasted 4 days now, the worst fighting between the two Southeast Asian neighbours in over a decade. Do you see hopes of de-escalation here, and why have they chosen Malaysia as the mediator?
Well, thanks very much, Thomas, for having me. It seems to me that this conflict is an emphasis that peace is indivisible around the world. Peace, like war, must be waged, and there must be ways in which to deal with disputes rather than through violence. It is interesting to me that while our own President Trump tries to take credit for everything, that in this instance Malaysia is being asked to be the peacemaker. This is really no substitute for an international system which can intervene in order to prevent violence and bloodshed as a way to resolve international disputes. One hopes that this border dispute, like those between China and India and other places throughout the world, can be put into perspective so that peace and prosperity throughout the world can go forward.
Yes, indeed, Raymond. And you briefly touched on it there, but the offer from the US president to mediate this conflict, and as you've said as well, Malaysia has indeed been chosen for this conflict. What does that say about Donald Trump's reach, particularly in the global East?
Well, I think it shows that his posturing is not really acceptable. People don't want to have someone who is threatening the old-time imperialism, if you will, to take over Greenland, to take over Canada as the 51st state, to take over the Panama Canal Zone, to be the one that they turn to in times of crisis to resolve these. The mindset of the President Trump is self-aggrandizement. He has made no secret of his desire to win the Nobel Peace Prize. And so he is claiming that he is resolving conflicts in Africa. He claimed that he resolved the conflict between Pakistan and India. And he'd like to be able to do that in this Cambodian Thailand situation as well. But the world is not, in the longer run, going to accept this kind of transactional approach to international affairs.
Yes, indeed, Raymond Vickery. Thank you very much for joining us on that topic. You are staying with us to discuss other updates. We now move over to Europe now, where US President Donald Trump has said there's a 50-50 chance of striking a trade deal with the European Union ahead of an August the 1st deadline, after which Washington has vowed to impose sweeping 30% tariffs on EU goods. Trump and EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen are set to meet today in Turnberry, Scotland, following intense overnight talks with US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick that diplomats described as combative. At stake is a $1.9 trillion transatlantic trade relationship. The EU is pushing to avoid tariffs that would impact key sectors like autos, steel, and pharmaceuticals. The current draft deal includes a 15% baseline US tariff, the same rate granted to Japan, with carve-outs for aircraft, lumber, and spirits. In exchange, the EU would boost US LNG imports and make new investment pledges. But the deal still needs approval from all 27 EU member states. Without a deal, the EU faces tariffs as high as 50% on steel and aluminium. And he has readied a $109 billion in retaliatory duties on US goods starting on August the 7th. We're once again joined by Raymond Vickery, who's a former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce, to discuss this further. Raymond, thank you very much once again. Raymond, what are your thoughts about Donald Trump's negotiating here? He says it's a 50-50 on whether this transatlantic trade relationship that's worth $1.9 trillion it has a sweeping tariff imposed on it. What are your thoughts on how this situation might develop? And also, let's bear in mind both outcomes of this, if a deal is made and if it is not.
Well, thanks again for having me on this subject, which is very close to me as a former Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Trade Development. You know, security matters and economic matters are joined at the hip. President Trump doesn't seem to recognize the great harm that is done to the position of the United States as leader of a so-called free world by creating this kind of problem. It does not stop at economics and goes across the board. That having been said, this is vintage Donald Trump in creating a problem which really didn't exist, and then halfway measures which he will claim as a great victory. Now, thank goodness, the Wall Street acronym TACO, Trump always chickens out, does apply in part, and that he won't follow through in terms of the really outrageous position of cutting off trade that he has been putting forward. The difficulty, of course, is just as in security negotiations of miscalculation on both sides, which causes the EU and the United States to stumble into a full-fledged trade war, which will have incalculable harmful effects. So far, the results of this approach, this transactional approach, have not been disastrous because really the positions which are taken by President Trump have not come to pass. I fully expect that there will be some kind of announcement which President Trump will claim as a great victory. But really what's going on, of course, is a sort of showmanship approach as opposed to dealing with the substance. In the longer run, it's going to be necessary to get back to some semblance of an international multilateral trade system, which we've had for 80 years, first under the General Agreements on Tariffs and Trade, and then on the World Trade Organization. You're not going to be able to sustain a real estate dealer's approach that everything is a transaction. There's a winner and loser, and you go forward and calculate some sort of victory based upon a false perception of the trade deficit. So I think something will come out of it and will restore some stability. But the harm which is being done to the international system will be there, not to mention the harm which is going to be done to the American consumer that's already experiencing some increase in inflation, which President Trump had promised to solve really as a part of his campaign last year. So something will come out of this, but in the longer run, this is not a sustainable way to run an international trade system.
Yes, indeed, Raymond Vickery. You are staying with us for further updates, but we will move on. But we will bring you any news of that meeting with the EU chief and the US president as soon as we get it. We stay in the region, with wildfires continuing to burn dangerously close to Turkey's fourth largest city of Bursa, where flames crept along the outskirts on Saturday and have remained active since then. According to the Bursa Governor's Office, nearly 2,000 residents have been evacuated from their homes as a precaution. The fires are part of a broader crisis gripping central Turkey, where wildfires have scorched vast areas of land, devastated local communities, and claimed the lives of at least 10 firefighters. This comes amid a searing Mediterranean heat wave that has intensified fire conditions. Meanwhile, heat waves and wildfires are not uncommon in the region. Officials and scientists note that their growing intensity and impact on human life reflect changing climate patterns. Authorities continue to battle the blazes, with firefighting teams working around the clock to prevent further spread. We are once again joined by Raymond Vickery to discuss this in further detail. Raymond, this is obviously a pattern, especially when it comes to Europe. Europe is the fastest warming continent in the world. What is your thoughts on this? This ever seem to be more common disaster of wildfires in the European region?
Well, Thomas, this story, of course, is really very close to me personally. I lost a good friend in a fire right outside of Athens in Kafisia, in an area down near a river stream which no one had ever thought would be swept by wildfires. And as you've noted, this is not an isolated incident. Today, there's stories about the smoke from the Canadian wildfires, which are drifting over New York. At the same time, we have terrible floods. And this is all, as has been predicted by competent scientists. When you have a global warming climate change, in some areas there will be great evaporation, but that water vapor has to come down and causes floods. What amazes me really is the lack of tying these kinds of catastrophes in forest fires and flooding to the basic problem of burning fossil fuels. The notation is often that these disasters are terrible and thoughts and prayers go out, but the tying of it to the basic cause for the aggravation of these phenomenon to fossil fuels, oil, gas, and coal simply is not being made. And of course, in the United States, we are faced with that phenomenon doubly as President Donald Trump tries to destroy really any linkage in the public mind between the fossil fuels and these kinds of forest fires. As you may have noted in regard to the Environmental Protection Agency, he's well on the way to destroying the analytic and scientific approach of that organization to climate change and the problems which it causes. So this is a very difficult situation, and it is incumbent upon the nations of the world to look not just at the immediate catastrophe, whether it be in Turkey, Greece, India, Europe particularly, as you've noted, but what is going on throughout the world. And if for no other reason, I believe that in the future, Donald Trump's legacy will be cursed in this area because of the very deliberate attempt to destroy the methods of the Paris Agreement and other measures to ameliorate the situation.
Yes, Raymond Vickery, thank you very much as always. Always a pleasure having you on the program. We now move over to the Middle East, where two Jordanian Air Force C-130 planes and one Emirati aircraft have dropped 25 tons of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip, the first airdrop in months, according to a Jordanian official source. This comes as Pope Leo voiced alarm over Gaza's deepening humanitarian crisis. Let's take a listen in to what he said.
Insegna ai suoi discepoli il Padre nostro. Seguo con molta preoccupazione la gravissima situazione umanitaria a Gaza, dove la popolazione civile è schiacciata dalla fame e continua ad essere esposta a violenze e morte. Rinnovo il mio accorato appello al cessate il fuoco, alla liberazione degli ostaggi e al rispetto integrale del diritto umanitario.
Israel has pledged a daily 10-hour pause in military operations to allow in aid, as Gaza's health ministry reports 127 malnutrition deaths, including 85 children. Ceasefire talks with Hamas remain stalled, however. We're now joined by Ambassador Suresh Goel, who is a former diplomat. He joins us live from New Delhi. A huge day for the people of Gaza, some relief for the international community who were voicing their concern, Ambassador Goel. Do you think Israel here are genuinely concerned about the humanitarian situation going on in Gaza, or do you believe that the mounting pressure from Western-led governments led them to allow this action?
Thomas, if I may say, I'm not quite convinced about the success of the airdropping of the humanitarian assistance in Gaza, for the simple reason that even earlier the issue was not availability of aid, or the issue was really its entry into Gaza and then delivery of that aid from the collection points to the Palestinians. For the day in and the day out, over the last more than a week really, we have seen reports that the assistance has been taken to the collection points where the Palestinians, including women and children, are gathered to pick up the aid, and then there is firing on them. And those women and children who are waiting to collect the aid, collect food, who are starving, and they die in that firing by the IDF. And therefore, even now, even if Israel has allowed the assistance to be airdropped, when the Palestinians, they go to collect the aid from wherever the aid has been dropped, are they going to be fired upon again?
Ambassador Goel, that's what I'm basically asking is, Israel has been facing criticism for months now in regards to how it's conducting itself in terms of its limits on aid that it has into the Gaza Strip during this war. However, Western pressure has really built up, not just Western pressure, but allied pressure, long-time allies of Israel. Do you think that this has been getting too much for Benjamin Netanyahu and his government, and they're afraid of being alienated from the international community now?
I don't know, and that is what I'm saying. There are all kinds of cosmetic measures which can be taken to give an impression that you are amenable to let the aid enter into Gaza. But Israel has two fundamental objections: Hamas and the impression and the perception that everybody who's living in Gaza is a supporter of Hamas, and their objective is to finish Hamas off. Those objectives have not changed. Until that happens, every Palestinian in Gaza is a simple target for them. And therefore, what I'm saying here is the aid may be allowed to enter, but the collection of that aid by the Palestinians is a huge issue, and we will have to wait for that to happen.
Ambassador Suresh Goel, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Well, that is all we have time for. We will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world. Thank you.